Very box, don't want to country flags off on the temple city. So they're definitely on Troy. Yeah, we're on. Well, even though better. I said, I think I know right where you are. So I can come to Troy.
All right, at this time, we will call to order the Adrian City Commission work study session for June 20th, 2023. Roll call, please.
Mayor Heath,
Present.
Commissioner Hall,
Present.
Commissioner Roberts,
Present.
Commissioner Miller,
Present.
Commissioner Strayer,
Present.
Commissioner Castleberry, absent, Commissioner Goff,
Present.
all commission members present with the exception of Commissioner Castleberry.
All right, at this time, I will turn it over to City Administrator Greg Elliott.
Thank you, Mayor. Note our city attorney's on Zoom tonight, but he is with us by way of Zoom. So for a first time for discussion, our city engineer has since the time that we had our discussions regarding protocols for street closures some time back, has never stopped looking for better options than those we're currently utilizing to keep people on closed streets safe. Keeping in mind the various concerns that we have, how much labor does it take to implement them? Obviously, what do they cost? Are they attractive? Are they effective? And so on, and thinks he's found a very appropriate solution that is relatively affordable. It's a form of a manual bollard that can be installed and street, stays in the street, can be operated by hand when we want to close the street to block traffic from getting through. He has an example here with him tonight, and he's going to present on that for you this evening. So Matt, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Greg. Show and tell. So this is the bollard. This will be what is encased in the ground. And then when we are looking to use it, pull it up. Lock it in place. We would need about 76 of these to cover all of our streets. These for the bollard themselves, we can get them at about $44,000. We think DPW can install them in a couple weeks. So material and equipment that we need to install, we're thinking probably 20 to 30 grand. So we could have all of our downtown streets in place with bollards for about 75 grand.
When you say all the downtown streets.
So we will have 2 on East Maumee, 2, so at Maumee and Broad, Main and Maumee on the west side, Maumee and Winter, Main and Church, Main and Maumee, North Main, all the way up to front, and then Washburn and Toledo as well. So a typical First Friday closure.
So you have them at the 4 corners for the 1 block closure?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
By comparison, a cart of those kind of militaristic looking barricades that you've seen pictures of elsewhere, 1 cart of those, which I think have 8 on it,
Yes.
is $90,000. And closes basically 2 streets, and not very securely, because the ones they have in Ann Arbor, I was up there a couple weekends ago, and I walked up to one and I was able to lift it and slide it. And one of the huge problems we have is not with people trying to, intentionally breach the street closure, but rather participants in the street closure who may or may not want to drive about in it for one reason or another. You're not driving through these. Once those are up, they're up. They're staying up until somebody unlocks them. So very
And they
secure.
can be quickly unlocked if emergency vehicles for you to get in.
Correct.
I had sent you those ones, and I like those. I like this one better. Because they're permanently in the ground, and it's just an easy to use.
Yeah.
We looked at a lot of other options, but this just seems to make no sense.
Do that very well with the weather, with freezing and thawing and.
Yeah, so there'll be a little cross line. We are gonna fabricate a top so we can take this top off in the winter time and put a solid plate on top, so it, dust and dirt and
Great idea.
water doesn't get inside, but, that is included in that cost.
You can get them all keyed the same way,
All be
so
the same way.
I like it.
Do you know other cities that have been using them?
I do not. I actually asked the supplier and he said he doesn't have anyone in Michigan that's used these specifically. So I asked for India and Ohio and no one has, but I think they're relatively new on the market. A lot of people have the portable bollards so they can take them off a trailer and set them in place. That's what a lot of people had, but when I saw this, I think that this solved a lot of our problems.
Yeah, because I was in Grand Haven last weekend and they had the big old, like, they had like kind of like grates, and then I tried to lift it up and you couldn't, I sent Gordon a picture of it, and those are very heavy. I think that'd be a lot of manpower to get those in and out, so you can permanently.
I mean,
you know,
it's 44 pounds. You can sit here and pull it up. So
Yeah.
I think it's sturdy enough for any of us to pull it up and work on.
Crash rate of the 20 miles an hour.
I think it's 20 to 25, yeah.
So in it, even if someone's going 40.
It's gonna slow them down.
Going to at least slow them.
And we'll spacing 5 feet apart for the one to hit too.
Good work, Matt.
Show Kelly.
Sorry. Apologize.
I'm in the ground and just maybe pull them up.
At about a cost of 75,000
So-
downtown.
What was the other one?
One cart with 8
Yeah.
barricades on it, which does two intersections, 90.
Yeah. Oh.
Nice work.
Yeah, good job.
Fine.
So, with that, I did get quotes from 3 different companies for the same product, so next meeting, I'll ask to waive the bid procedure, and we can go ahead and purchase these. They are about 6 to 8 weeks out, so, there will be some delay in getting them.
With another month or so to at least install. right?
Yeah, we're estimating about 3 weeks to install.
Were the quotes very different? I mean, is there anything we don't usually waive the bid for something that.
They were the exact same products, and I got quotes from 3 different people, and they were all relatively close, so.
Good work, Matt.
Well, thanks for continuing. I know it seems like
Yeah.
it's sometimes.
We're just trying to find a solution.
To take a decision, to make a decision, but sometimes cases like this and other cases, we need that time to do our homework.
Absolutely.
And it also saves us thousands of dollars. in the long run when it comes to
yes.
federal funds.
Yeah, yes.
Well, the DPW being able to install will save us a tremendous amount of money to install.
That's great.
It's good to have a base.
Both on the front end and the back end, right? You don't need labor to put them in, there's no labor to put them in place, right? You've got to.
The guy with the key and
Emergency services can just put them down so that you
No.
don't delay any.
Then we come out last time, how much staff time it would take, like on first Fridays to get the multiple ones, it'd be a lot. Yeah, man.
Okay, well, no other questions for Matt? Can move on. In the category of things that cost more than we had hoped, we have Jay.
I know, Jay.
Jay had that, to be fair. Farmers market electrical, as you'll recall, we're putting electrical along the west side of the farmers market pavilion area. To principally allow food trucks to be able to plug in and not have to use a generator during events over there, but. Also, we had hoped to have some charging, additional electric vehicle charging stations in that location, which would be our. I don't know, how many were we?
8 ports, so 4 stations. total.
4 stations for 8 vehicles, so we have currently 2
We have 2 right now. Over in the south.
in the Church Street lot. So, and obviously that's the way of the future and we're going to have to prepare for it, but. The quote from Consumers Energy came back. More than we had expected, and so I'll let Matt and or Jay, whoever wants to take it, explain where we're at on that.
So I just saved you guys a bunch of money, remember that.
yeah, we won't forget.
So after we got design back from consumers, it came back about 10,700. And that will be to put a new transformer in, set a new pole for the farmers market parking lot. That'll be plenty of power for anything that we plan to do back there. So that's what the cost came in. They're waiting for us to sign, and then they can start construction on it. So
Is that 10,700, is that in addition to what you guys budgeted?
Yes.
Okay.
yes. And this was unforeseen. We went to consumers months and months ago, telling them our plan was, and they didn't say anything about it. And then a phone call came through and said, "Matt, this is gonna cost you guys. Come on. You tell me I gotta walk to these guys and ask for more money now?" So, 10,700 and that'll get the job done.
Did they ever get back to you on whether if it was just the food trucks that wouldn't get us?
They said, they'll talk with their design team later this week, so I still don't have an answer.
I mean, whether it is, or there's some possibility that the additional charge is for power needed for the charging stations and not for the food trucks necessarily, but. I would say either way, it's something that I would recommend doing. We're going to do that.
Those are full all the time over there.
So we will have to bring this back, obviously, I'll have to bring a resolution back, but I want to make sure the commission is comfortable with it before we do that.
Yes, and we get estimate, they're an estimate.
Well, they're the only game in town, so consumers is consumers.
If we think it's going to cost something and the people who are actually going to do it tell us it's something different.
Well, many times they'll relocate things without a charge.
Yeah.
There was more involved here than we had anticipated.
Do we get any income off the Church Street lot chargers?
We do, it's not significant, but we get income off of it.
What did you tell me the percentage use of?
It's about 3%. Used throughout the year, so, and.
It's actually increased, so I didn't look at last year, but I know it's increased over last year. Last year was about 1.5% usage. So we about doubled the usage for the first 6 months of this year compared to last year. And it's trending up, so that's a good sign for us, knowing more people are using it. I think it's just a matter of making sure that people are aware of the charging station, which is something I'm gonna focus on over the next several months. And then as we have other opportunities or more requests, we can obviously accommodate that by putting in the new station.
Isn't there a map though for people that have, people that can find them?
Charge point, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think most of the people, residents, have charging stations in their own garage. I mean, that's typically, so it'll be the out of town traveling. The people coming to Roswell and, coming from other towns, that's where we're going to issue.
I know that I took, a few weeks ago, I took a trip to Tennessee in an electric car. And every time that we would go to a charging station, we would look around where we're at and for things to drink and eat and blah, blah, blah. So it definitely is an advantage to our downtown merchant.
And I'm actually getting one installed in my South Main location because they want to be, it's a fast charger though, is downtown one's fast charger too? Or no?
That one, the current one we have is not.
Well, because they were looking at the map and they wanted to go up my North Story, but then there's not, like Lad said, there's not enough stuff around it, for people to do when it charges, so it's like a 20 or 30 minute charge and people go in and buy stuff or they'll go.
Be longer than that.
The slow charger's a little longer than that.
Right, well, he was saying, this is a fast charging and it takes up like 2 allocated parking spaces, but 2 more shared, but they said they want to be where the action's at, and then it'd be great for downtown, if that's marketed a little bit better, and we can get people wandering around.
Are you looking at the ones by farmers market being fast or?
Yes, yeah, and Jay's been looking at a lot of grants. There's a lot of grants for stuff like this, so if we can attack one of those here soon and get something installed, and yeah, we can move forward with that.
Anything else on that? Moving right along. If I don't have to take it. Jeremiah is going to tell you about a Spark grant opportunity, which we kind of always had in our mind as we were going through capital budget, earlier, in the year, and now it's time to apply for it. We have this resolution on your agenda tonight, but as is a custom, I want to give you a chance to hear about it and talk about it first before you're asked to vote on it. So, Jeremiah, explain this project.
Thank you, Greg. Good evening, everybody. The DNR Spark Grant that we are going to submit this week upon commission approval is focusing on heritage park upgrades. And you're asking, you're thinking, why Heritage Park? Well, this is coming from our 5-year plan. There are certain things within that 5-year plan, especially in regards to heritage that need to be addressed. What it would do, we're looking to really focus this grant on the softball pavilion area. Safety netting and fencing is a huge thing. We need to upgrade our bathrooms, and the whole structure as a whole is extremely old. It's falling apart. There's some ADA issues with it as well. That again, that falls in to some of the upgrades and things that we wanted to do. We had as a part of our 5-year plan. So we're going to address that. Some additional parking, and if you've ever been down there in the summer, in between the 4 fields, it's a dust bowl. We want to go through and address that. We also want to add some paid parking, kind of at the end of field number 4, where it kind of enters into back towards the Stubman Center. So there's a number of things that we want to do out there. The grant is going to be roughly $540,000 that we're submitting to the DNR. We will hear back in mid to late September. At that point, we have a couple of years to get the project going and stuff. So we're going to submit that this week. Get upon commissioner approval, we'll probably either submit it tomorrow or Thursday. We've been working with some grant writers, Councilman Huns or Manny Smith actually, to help us with that. So that's what this grant is going to focus on, is this much needed heritage park upgrades.
This is one of the advantages of having an up-to-date Parks and Rec master plan. So we're allowed to apply for these grants, and we took care of that last year.
The county got a Spark grant, didn't they? I believe for the. Didn't they Spark?
Yeah, well, at the time that we were. At the time that we were applying for the grant that we got through the county for the trail extension, the reason that the communities had to go county at that time to apply for them was nobody else had. I think Tecumseh may have had an up-to-date parks plan, but we did not.
And this does allow us going forward to apply for yearly, they're called rent passport grants. They max out at 150K, but it's a simple process. It has to be turned in by the end of the year. So again, Greg referencing the up-to-date parks plan does allow us to do this now going forward every single year. So we've got a plethora of capital items that we'd like to submit. So we expect to see that every year.
Do we have any idea of like what the acceptance rate for the grant applications are?
Not to sound grim, but it's tough because when they opened this up, the state said they were overwhelmed by applications the first round, second round, and so really this just depends on what they deem as a need for your community. That's why we did bring on Manny Smith, folks that are really good at this. So we feel like we have a great application, very thorough and extensive. Again, this does, reference our 5-year parks plan, which is a huge criteria in filling out these grants, is that we are following, loosely what we set forth in the parks plan, and which everything that we put in this grant request is in our 5-year.
Do we have a plan B if we don't get accepted?
The rec passport stuff, obviously, it would be at a much smaller increment. Obviously, it's 150,000 each year. Going past that, it would be, each year capital budget request. Parts we would have to address those.
There aren't any other grants that we could.
Not really on this scale. No, not like this. But there's continual different things out there. But to address on a scale like this is really our best offerings. But again, if this doesn't work, we can always look at we'll submit for the rec passport stuff and continue just to to look in and be on the lookout for other grant opportunities for this type of recreational stuff and upgrades.
Because I noticed in the, even though I wasn't here, but I did watch the video, the company that did the pool had 2 pages essentially of grant
Yeah.
possibilities.
Yep.
I didn't know if any of those might,
Their potentials, and I have those we look at them, just to develop again on the type of request and the need. A lot of those are a little more focused in the aquatics industry as opposed to what we're.
some of them definitely.
Okay, anything else on the start grant? Well, that we come back to the pool.
Dun, dun, dun.
Fortunately, we have plenty of time to talk about it. You know, as we've had time to digest what we heard last time from Councilman Hunsucker, you know, options for new pool and timelines about how long it takes to either rehab the pool or build new. And it occurs to me, and I mentioned this in one of my weekly reports, that the clearest path forward might be an incremental approach. You know, as we were kind of wrapping up last time, we were talking about, well, what would we have to do to make sure we still have a season next year? Because the consultant told us that, but quite contrary to what we had believed up to that point, that, you know, the rehab project would eliminate the season. So even if we were building in another location, now we're at the point when we started down this path of, you know, studying what we wanted to do to address the condition of the pool. We assumed it would continue to limp along, and that we could build in parallel elsewhere, and then, you know, never lose the season of the pool. But we're at the point now with the condition of things that we're barely going to be able to open this year, and we should not assume that we would be able, absent doing something, that we would be able to open it next year. And so we were talking sort of at the end of the meeting last time, well, what would those expenses be that we would absolutely have to do to ensure that we would have a season next year? And that's the boiler, that's the pump, that's the chemical delivery system. You know, it's over $100,000 worth of work that we would have to do just to have a season next year. Well, there's no guarantee. In fact, it's highly likely that those things would not transfer to another facility if we installed them for bone pool. And when you talk about making that kind of an investment to keep it going, then, you know, doesn't it begin to make sense to look at an incremental approach where we just piece by piece upgrade what we have and let that be our pool of the future as it has been in the past. It also kind of occurred to me, I don't know if it occurred to anybody else, that we were looking at these various drawings of configurations where there was a recreational pool and a lap pool, and, you know, they were separated, whereas we kind of have both in one right now. And there are certain improvements that could be done to the recreational side of it to tick off some of those things that were favored in the survey. You could, for example, install a beach entry. We already have a slide, we could have a new slide. You know, whatever those things are, you know, you could add something back for children. There used to be a kiddie pool there that could easily be a splash pad, so on and so forth. You could add things back that would be addressing some of the things that are favored in more modern pools, but not have to go wholesale to a new configuration. So that's kind of where my thinking is at on. I think Jeremiah is of a similar mind. We wanted to bring that to you for discussion, see if it begins to make sense to the mission. Of course, we would have to nail that down then, if that's the path that we want to begin studying. Because what are those, what are those phases, what needs to be, pretty clear, certain things are in phase one, like I described. But what else could be in phase one? I don't know, as we sit here, what the condition of the liner is. Whether that could, it's not great, I know that, but whether it could stand another season or not, whether that has to be up front. But, address those things. Most urgent, next most urgent, desired, so on an incremental basis year to year. Also, then, of course, becomes much more important. Go that out to the commission for discussion. See if our thinking is aligned, I guess.
I'll fire away first. So I did a lot of thinking about this, and after I asked the gentleman that did the study, I asked him, like, do they have any data behind the, city of our size to the structures that it's bringing us, and I think he thought he answered the question, then we kind of wait a little bit, and I reiterated, like, socioeconomic in our city, our population, does a $17 million pool make sense? And so I, just as the more I think about it, is like, what's Bone Pool? What's Bone Pool meant to me? What does it mean to the community? I think Bone Pool is a community pool. I think that we have a great swimming community. We have a lot of young talent that are coming through the Gators and Wave Runners, but I think the pool was designed is to be affordable for all kids. I know a lot of kids that I coach, that is their recreation. And I also didn't agree with the math adding up either, $4 million to renovate it. I'm like, I'm doing the math, and I asked the director, I go, so the boiler's 90, the pump's 15, the float, I can't remember what he said the float was, but I'm like, you figure if you make a zero beat, even if you read, because I know the mayor was right behind me when we went and seen it on the Monday we talked about the first time, and that pool house in bad shape. I mean, it needs a complete gut out and then a renovation, but even then, like, the math still didn't add up, and the parking lot's in bad shape. I think that we could do some things to make it look brand new and fresh, without bonding out, the cheapest option that that he gave us wasn't even a lane pool. So we'd have to go with option 2 at the minimum. That was like $8 to $10 million. And I know it sounds great, like, oh, let's just, but when the bill comes and we gotta pay it, that's when we need to pump the brakes a little bit, educate the public on how much those bond payments be. So I would like to, this is just me personally, to see us go with the phase approach. I've took enough time, I've watched the meeting again, I've talked to the director and I read the report. Zero beach entry is one of the top things. I think it was the top thing when it comes to the study. And so that, I think that, if it's feasible, that we can, have that for next year also. But I know we gotta move fast, but the liner, I know that we bought a liner probably 7 years ago or so. Remember that? So that's at the end of its life, but I still am doing the math in my head. It just doesn't add up to $4 million when it comes to a complete overhaul. So the chairs are there. I think when I was there, when I was a kid, the beach chairs. I mean, so, I'm thinking the new monument sign out front, new parking lot, complete overhaul in the pool house, zero beach entry, new boiler pump, float device. And it's gonna look like a brand new pool. I mean, and new chairs. Current location, I think that if we were to build another pool, we'd also have to worry about what we're gonna do with the old pool. We have to worry about with that land. So,
And those costs, demolition costs.
right, correct. So,
And we don't lose a seat.
and we don't lose a season. So,
Overly nervous about the numbers. The influx of numbers.
Yes.
They had, look at that, like, you're doubling.
I
don't understand those
Where are they
people.
coming from?
Yeah.
I'm like, it's more than we have in Lenawee County.
I deal with population change every day in my job. And the state of Michigan in our area and overall is in a state of population decline and has been and is not projected to increase for years and years. And I pulled up the state of Michigan website, and especially our area, our population is 20, put my glasses on, that would help. 25 to 74% decline in the last 10 years, depending on which area you're in. I don't see those numbers. I just don't know where where you
Well-
get those people from.
When you consider that Litchfield and Tecumseh each have community pools too. So it's not like we're gonna build the Taj Mahal and then everybody's gonna come. I don't believe it.
I thought there'd be a baseball reference there. I thought there'd be a baseball reference there.
Oh.
You know, I'm concerned.
Dreams.
Building
And we also have to remember also that though, all three options we had a significant loss, you know, when it comes
Yes,
to.
yeah,
We have to make up the shortfall, because I refuse to increase the fees.
Right.
Because that's what makes bone pools special, I said before, is that it's portable, you know, and so for everybody, and so. Taking $100,000 loss in general fund, not counting the chemicals and stuff we have to do with staffing, you know. Pools are money pits, I mean, that's just the way it is, so.
It's never going to be a money maker, but
No.
none of our amenities, none of our amenities are money makers. The
Yeah.
pickleball court, we're not making money. on
Right,
it.
quality of life stuff.
It's quality of life,
Yep.
you know, the Kiwanis Trail, it's not a money maker. Now, it's gonna draw people here, which could translate to more tax dollars. But to say this equals that. That would be really difficult.
But that like, in our conversation. A month ago, you were in a meeting where that we were talking about the driving force for people moving to an area was quality of life.
Yeah.
Well, for economic development in general,
Yeah.
quality, you know, but people. You know, jobs follow people, people don't follow jobs, and it's all about the quality of life. Education. For economic development purposes. Wow.
This is something we can rehab, have something nice for quite a few more years, but start looking now at what we're gonna do
10 years
in
now.
10 years when we think. Like they gave us a timeline of about 7 to 10 years of that.
Yeah, but I don't believe those
Well,
numbers either.
20 lives get renovated.
Yeah,
Additional life. And so-
okay, and then so we need to start looking now so that we're not stuck without a pool for a couple of years. Then we don't want to set the future up to fail either.
Well, it's like our ambulances, we plan for ambulances and fire trucks, for years.
Yep.
Yep.
Why, if the pool is a huge expense. So yeah, we need to do that depreciation and plan for it.
There's an education to hear the numbers. But I've moved very quickly from, well, this is pie in the sky. This is not something that we should target. I think going after the renovation is right. But it was important for me to hear the numbers based to the plans in 2 or 3. I mean, they were wonderful dreams, but I think exactly right. Let's renovate this and then get it on a systematic year-by-year plan where we are taking care of certain things. that We're not blindsided by anything. I think that's the way to go and make it, you know, those fixes that we're talking about are not big fixes. How many people said the chairs are bad? Let's get the chairs fixed. Let's get the parking lot fixed. Let's get the sign fixed. Let's get the
Pool house is really
pool
bad.
house
Really bad.
bombed out. Or whatever. I'm not saying they're quick fixes, but I don't think that's the $4 million, did it?
Yeah, you know, and I understand, I've done enough studies, in the cities, in my tenure to know that. Studies are what they are, and some of them they try to sell stuff. I get that, but
I have to say that I think the community would be very excited about what we propose, if we propose this kind of renovation and fixing and getting that back into a nice, presentable place. All the different accoutrements that you're talking about, I think they would be thrilled about it.
I mean, it's so cheap to go there when it comes to all day, it's like, a lot of kids are playing baseball, travel baseball, they're doing. Competitive swimming, a lot of kids don't have much, and that's a very, very, very cheap. That was the only recreation I had when I grew up, that's it. I couldn't afford to play baseball, couldn't afford, so. It was very cheap and affordable, and I'd like to see that Bone Pool, I got started with the city. Because of Bone Pool. That has to come to a meeting. The rest of the commission.
I know that during our last meeting, I thought they gave us awful lot of information. I was like in overload mode, and I don't know how many times I've picked this thing up and looked at it over the last couple of weeks. And the one thing that each time I would pick it up, the one thing that I really thought about was what our director was saying, and I think Commissioner Halt was saying that the price of admission has to stay the same. And to rebuild the pool, I think that's the only way you can probably keep it the same. unless we want to subsidize more. And so the more I looked at it, I just thought, we basically have to make one of two decisions, either rebuild or take option two, because it seemed as though lane swim was important. But it sounds to me like everybody is leaning towards rebuilding, and I think that's a good idea. And another thing, every time I picked this up, I thought, I have never been in that pool. Okay, never. I mean, I would go there for the newspaper to take pictures, but I've never stepped into the pool. And I don't ever see myself.
Well, you got that slip and slide in your backyard.
So this is, I'm willing to go along with what most people think, because it's, I don't really have any skin in this game down the road. But as far as financially for the community, I think that rebuilding the pool is the best idea. The only thing that really bothers me is that it's still in a floodplain, but it's been there for 50 years. I had one incident. But I know Mary and I were talking about it, and I'm always following weather patterns and things, and it doesn't matter if you're talking about tornadoes or hurricanes or what, because of climate change, they all are getting worse. And so we had one incident in 50 years. It's not to say that in a couple of years, we could have a flooding issue there that could damage, some of the functions of the pool, but I guess that's rolling the dice. And when we go with the less expensive option.
I just don't, I don't believe our community would want to afford a pool for 17, 18 million. And that's a lot of money, and without serious grant funding that, we could secure, it's just not an option to increase taxes or increase our bond payments, which would. Okay, then we gotta take it away from other places, where if we have bond payments for the pool, that means that money's gotta come from somewhere. Where are we gonna take it from?
Well, the projections were way over the top.
Way.
Very,
Yes.
really rosy. And I mean, I hate to say this, it's kind of like a project approach. I mean, the numbers just don't make sense.
And like you said, the bond payments, the one key component, but also the revenue shortfall every year, we have to make up for how much money we lose. And then, he's probably not gonna be happy with us if we, long term, because the bigger the pool you get, the more money, I think that, Jeremiah and Greg, get together and talk about when it comes to the survey, because the survey did give us some good information on what's important to the community, and so whether it be the zero beach entry or just some more amenities that could be added to it eventually, I think it's a win-win for everybody. Without that double-digit $1 million price tag, so.
Sure, Mike, you wanna?
Yeah, and I just, to kind of bring you back and to kind of go along with what some of you were thinking. One, the top amenities that were listed, were one, all recreation focused, right? Not competitive swim. Again, and this is not me speaking out against competitive swim. It's fantastic. Just talking about from the survey, what people said, everything was recreation based. The top four, one was water slides, two, a lazy river, three, lounging areas, and four, a zero beach entry, right? And so in my conversations, continual conversations with community residents and pool users is, and I even went back and looked at a recreation survey from 2021, right when I first started, and started reading through the comments again. And a lot of the comments reference foam pool. They were all positive, saying it's a quality of life amenity. I had a good conversation with a resident the other day, kept using the term community standard. The community standard was that we are providing something positive to our community. We're not creating barriers because of price or location. I think it is fairly centrally located to that. But again, everything was super positive, and just folks reiterated that, guess what, this is what we do in the summer. Here you go. And personally, if I took myself away from my position in the city, yes, to the $17 million massive thing, that sounds, well, sure it does. But in reality, looking at our community, looking at the usage, the pool essentially opens on time, it's June 1st, and it closes roughly the second, at the latest, the third week of August, right? And we have a lot of kids that work our pool. You know, there's not like full-time lifeguards just sitting around going, man, I can't wait to get a lifeguarding job for 2 months, right? So we use high school swim athletes, folks like that. They have a small window that they can work. Look at the weather. We're not, this isn't Miami, Florida, where we're open. So to bring it all back, everything was very recreation focused. The price, again, was one of those big things where families and people have said, it's a fun recreation, needs upgraded, yes. However, it still is a fun and exciting place to go to. And as Commissioner Health said, you know, I coach football every year. I see those kids every summer down, right? Coach Davies, what's up? Hey guys, you know what's happening? So these are our kids, local kids that use this pool. The cost is significantly low. And as you looked at some of the proposed numbers from the study, we're talking doubling and tripling, right? So yes, this great amenity sounds fantastic, but what does that do for our residents, right? That starts to price many of them out. And I think that's really gets that. So that's just my input and my thoughts. And again, going back to, you know, the top 4 amenities were all very recreation based. Folks just want to have fun. They want to come down, they want to cool off. Right. And so that's
I think another thing is safety. We talked about safety with the bollards, but boat pool is where my children, who are all adults now, learned how to swim. The swim lessons that happen there are critical to safety. And because where else are you going to learn to swim? I mean, if you can afford to go to the Y, that's fine. I don't know if LCS or still have swim lessons, but this is where my experience, the majority of people that my kids grew up with, this is where they learned how to, so that they could go to One Horse Lake and Douglas Lake and stuff. So it's not just a quality of life, but to me, it's a safety issue. People in Michigan need to know how to swim. People everywhere, but especially in and my children were all lifeguards there, all worked there, were all lesson givers, and yeah, it's very important.
And if we can make it a little deeper to add a diving board, since you know, I'm one of those that used to go off the very high dive way back when at Palm Pool. They used to have a very, very high dive there.
That was so cool.
I know, I was always scared to death, but I did it.
Well, at some point down the road, maybe we add a diving tank. I mean, that's cheaper than putting in a whole lane pool or anything. I mean, down the road, you know, phase spot.
Well, whatever we do with the bottom, right, the current bottom design, I think it's the slope coming out of the deep end that doesn't meet current standards for a diving board. I think we removed it, right? Correct. But, you know, when we address the liner and the shape of the bottom, that's the time to either fix that slope so that you can still dive, or if that's not viable, lessen it so that it's more recreational.
So if we're under the agreement, which I think we are, so what do you, when it comes to funding, like on a renovation project, what are our options there? You haven't dug that.
Well, we gotta, we gotta build out on those numbers, and you know, we will bring back to you a phase 1 proposal. These are things that we gotta do that make sense to do before next year, so that we are assured of the season next year. See what that is. See what it is, we'll figure out how we're gonna pay for it.
Yeah.
Obviously, we got money in the bank, and we're not gonna exceed the amount of that. So I feel like we're gonna finance it. We'll see what that number is.
Will it be possible to get the equipment upgrades ordered and installed this fall after the school season, so that they're ready to go?
Oh, yeah, no, that would be the plan.
Okay.
Yeah. That's so cool. Thanks. We've done an extremely poor job of budgeting your time.
We never.
We should have started at 6, but
All right.
that being said, does anyone else have any topics for pre-meeting discussion?
You got anything for us?
4th Street.
Right.
Looked right through it. Well, I'll tell you, by way of an update, sitting here with lots of time on our hands, we had our kickoff meeting for our zoning ordinance rewrite today. Consultants from Smith Group were here, and Jeremy and I met with them, went through all the things we want to address with the new ordinance that aren't addressed in the current ordinance. Accessory dwelling units, design standards for commercial sites. Sign ordinance that comports with modern day. Kind of like lessening our or providing flexibility with respect to our off-street parking standards, but not going away from them as some places are, because I don't know that necessarily makes sense in a community where we don't allow parking on the street overnight. But I went through it. It was a long meeting. We probably sat with them for a better part of 2 hours. Went out and did a tour of the town as well and looked at some things as we're out and about. So really good meeting, and there's a steering committee now that they will come back and meet with in a few weeks that consists of Mr. Gauss, who volunteered during the planning commission's discussion, 2 planning commissioners, Don Taylor and Ryan Watson, and 1 member of our zoning board of appeals, Cindy Dealey, as well as Jeremy and myself. Looking forward to getting that project going.
You guys talk about like changing the configurations of like say garages and stuff like that. Is that something or am I just?
Well, we already at planning commission amended the ordinance to allow for, in essence, a 2-story accessory structure, attached accessory structure, with the eye toward doing something about accessory dwelling units. So that the idea being that could be a space above the garage, that could be an accessory dwelling unit. The ordinance isn't there yet, but that when we rewrite it, that will be addressed in some fashion. And just in general, missing middle, people use the term missing middle housing wrongly a lot of times, as though it's an income-based thing, but it's really not. Missing middle housing refers to those buildings that have greater density, but look like the rest of the neighborhood. And we have a lot of homes that are large homes, that are larger than people would necessarily use for single-family dwelling, that could address that component. And what happens then is, of course, supply and demand, as you add more units, that allows for the price to either stay affordable or become more affordable for housing units in general. So that is one of their charges. That's one of their principal charges, along with leaning up, what we call leaning up the zoning ordinance, making it much simpler, more user friendly. Which is not to say having low standards, but simplifying both processes and standards so that they're easy to understand and apply. We would like to go away from things that cause a lot of delay. For example, temporary use permits. Well, there are a lot of temporary use permit applications that go to the zoning board of appeals. But you have to wait a minimum of 30 to 45 days to get in front of them, do that. And are there are there criteria that we can write into the ordinance that if they're met, we can approve that administratively and you don't have to wait?
So that's, was that like conversions? Cause I remember I sent you a citizen to reach out to me. She bought a house on Dean Street. You know, and the likelihood of wanting to have the garage in the back. Be another unit, but the mortgage company wasn't zoned. It was only zoned single family, so she couldn't get a mortgage on it. So does that address that at all or? Is that
Well,
still-
the topic will be addressed, yes. That's one of the policies that, our new master plan indicates should be addressed in the zoning ordinance, and so they know that, they obviously have it in that. And, they understand that's one of the priority items to address. Now, how the planning commission will come out with that, it's ultimately up to the city commission, what you adopt, but it will be formulated by the planning commission as a zoning ordinance, so. You know, what they come up with as a way to address that remains to be seen, but that'll be a topic of discussion.
And we also have a topic of discussion about, overnight street parking. Would that be a part of that, or would that be a different?
That's within your purview, that's a general ordinance. The planning commission wouldn't have, in general, zoning ordinances regulate private property, right? They don't regulate streets. Public property. So our no overnight parking ordinance is one of the general ordinances. You can take it up anytime you want it.
I would like to have that. Else is interested in putting that on the next agenda.
It would be timely because, there were many things about what we're doing with the zoning ordinance that implicate that issue, right? If you don't have on-street parking, as you talk about adding dwelling units, well, that means you're adding 2 parking spaces to that site, off-street parking spaces to that site, or you can't do it. You have on-street as an option, you can be more flexible. I still, like I said, I still wouldn't go away. Some communities have sort of thrown in the trash their off-street parking regulation, but the users will, they know what they need. I don't believe that myself. There are responsible users who know what they need and will do a project if they don't have a parking. But that's not it.
What do you
That's
mean,
not-
what do you mean know what they use?
If you have a Olive Garden coming, right? Olive Garden corporate knows exactly how many off-street parking spaces their site must have. If they can't have that many, they won't come. And, if you're requiring more, all right, they'll build it, but they know what they need. That's not every business, and that's not your typical mom and pop business, and it's certainly not your residential user who, and we have now, Matt can tell you, we have lots of folks come in asking for residential parking permits because they live in a house where they've got 3 cars and a 1-lane wide drive,
That's me.
you
We had 5 cars and a 1-lane driveway.
right? And so we're charging them. We usually, Matt and Brett go out and look at that site and determine, is there really a problem? Do they need it before we grant those permits? But we grant a lot of them. How many we grant in a year, would you say, Matt?
We're probably at close to 50 to 100 right now.
And what do we charge
$150
per year?
per year.
So we're making money on them, but,
Is it okay? Is it the
is
right?
that the right way? Is that the right approach? Or, is there a substantial enough reason to not allow parking on the street? Or could, alternating parking address it the same way? Some communities do like they do. Many communities do this during snow removal season, but some communities do it all year round. Where you can only park on one side of the street on Mondays and the other side on Tuesdays and so on. So that one side's always clear, whether it's for street sweeping or snow removal or whatever.
Okay, the only thing I'm gonna say about overnight parking, because a lot of people think it was put in place for street sweeping and snow removal. I was 20 years old when that ordinance went into effect. And it was a blight issue. There were many people who put their cars up on cinder blocks on the street and left them there for months at a time. While they did their repairs, they pulled the engine, leaked oil on the street. So there's a lot of other issues besides just street sweeping and snow removal. So those things we'll have to consider as we talk about this.
Right,
But one thing, if you're changing sides, if that is like. on
That's
certain
what,
days,
that's what they do in New York. I mean,
They
New
do
York
it-
City.
They
it's
did it in
over
my
the side.
neighborhood in Chicago too.
Yeah.
So we had to switch. We didn't have a driveway. Nobody did. So we. had
And
to
nobody will
switch
be able to
sides
put
all
their
the time.
cars up on block, and
They
just
they
leave.
have people from parking there
If you
permanently.
rotate sides of the road, then you have to get that project done in at least a week.
Yeah.
You know, consider there for a month.
I think
Right.
also, if we are gonna continue to do permits. Having people go out and look and seeing the validity of those decisions. So what if the permit costs 150? We could appreciate that. After 3 or 4 years, they're not paying anything, they still have a permit. If they're still okay, because we don't have to make money off those people. We do need to somehow take care of the expense of people going out, taking care of the, seeing that it works.
Do we charge, Matt, do we charge for, there's people who have family coming in for a week or two.
Yes, it's
We,
$50
we can
a
do
month.
we don't have to do an annual permit, right? We can do a day permit or. a
You
week
can do a month, it's a month, so now it's a month per vehicle. 15, yes. Fine.
Well,
There's
there's,
that.
I go back to the conversions of single family, I mean, when it comes to like the lady I emailed, I forwarded her email, Greg, it's like, she was, I mean, it's unfortunate that, we have a unit shortage, that's why rents are the way they are in Adrian, because there's not enough housing, so. And she wasn't able to convert that garage into an apartment that had full kitchen, full bathroom. So, and I drove by the house on Dean, it's up for sale now, she's selling it because she can't get a mortgage on it, but it's another unit that could house a family. Or an individual or two for very cheap, and I'm not concerned about rents going down because, and I'm a landlord, they need to go down. Because when I list something, I get 50 applications and that's, people are fighting over just nice places to live, and if we can add more units to the inventory, I think that's gonna be beneficial for everybody.
Yeah, I think it's extremely important as the population gets older. There's gonna be a number of people who are gonna wanna put parents in a housing unit like that, or
Yeah.
it seems like a lot of people just don't wanna work these days, so people can put their 30-year-old kid who doesn't have a job in a house, and he doesn't have to live in the house with them, but
Get them out of the basement.
yeah. So I do have one question that I get asked all the time, and that is, do we have any knowledge about what's going on with the old big boy? I get asked this. a couple times.
It's a restaurant user who's bought it, who seems to be limited means. He's asked, are there grants available to help him do it? Does he really have to repair the parking lot? Questions like that.
It's not from Adrian.
No, it's not.
So probably not gonna happen for a while.
I get asked to,
That's why I've been getting asked the questions, because people are concerned with it turning into a blighted building.
Great location. I hope they have success with it.
let's cheers to the old country market store,
Yeah.
that property,
Yeah.
it's looking good.
It looks
That's-
so good.
So I'll just tell you this, and we are pleased about that, but on our tour, I took the two zoning consultants from Smith Group to that property, and they said, oh, this is awful. Look at all this pavement, why all this pavement? This is terrible. And I knew that would be their reaction, but, the reason is in part because we don't have design standards that require them to do anything different. The other reason there, probably more significant reason is that it's still a contaminated site. So they can't unencapsulate that soil. In fact, we're holding up their CO until they deal with the stockpile contaminated soil that's, so don't go digging in that. That's sitting behind the storm. That came from them digging the piers for those supports for the retaining wall. And it's heavily contaminated, and they're negotiating with Eagle about which kind of landfill they have to take it to. Definitely gotta leave the site.
That's where the dry cleaners were.
What's that?
There was a dry cleaner right down there. at that
Well,
end.
that's what it's from, yeah.
Yeah.
But within the, within the constraints of what we had to work with, it turned out reasonably well. We traded curb cuts for those trees. They pushed back on wanting the trees, but we don't have an ordinance to require them. And the owner's rep said, I don't know if I can get you 5 canopy trees. Well, you've got 5 curb cuts, so let's talk about which of those you're gonna close. Magically, the trees were now on the table.
It continues to be a spot though for dumping. Every time I walk by, I mean, it's always been an issue. People would drop off stuff at those dumpsters there.
Well, those dumpsters are going. So one of the things that we are able to require is a dumpster enclosure.
Good.
They have one. I mean, this is one of the issues with the project as well. They built they didn't follow the design standards for the dumpster enclosure, so they have to rebuild it. But there is a dumpster enclosure going in the back, and then the dumpsters before they get a CO will go in. Whether it's they have 2 and they built an enclosure for one, but there will be no unenclosed dumpsters.
Which I found just
Store
interesting because on Saturday or Sunday, I'm walking by there with tank and there's a mattress and some styrofoam. I'm thinking, we just had a citywide cleanup. How did this? I'm really glad. I didn't know. Something happened in.
Have a payment or something that was jammed up, but I don't have an explanation.
That's the payments that we get, particularly from the insurance companies, there's a trail that goes back,
But
so.
this one, I mean, oftentimes they're in that 120,000 range. I noticed it right away, it's 156,000.
Wow. I didn't catch that.
I was just wondering if there's anything different than what's gone for 8 days. I was in.
Yeah, well, as long as I can milk in there, put it up for public comment.
All right, at this time, I will open it up for public comment. We will begin inside the city chambers first, just to reiterate, please state your name and address, and you will hear the alarm go off if you bypass the 3-minute time limit. After we are done inside the chambers, we'll open it up to any Zoom participants. All right, we're gonna open it up to any Zoom participants.
Ken Tokars, 110 South Locust here.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay, it's hard to believe that it's been almost 5 years since Michigan began the process of allowing the sale of recreational cannabis. A lot has happened specific to the cannabis industry during the past 60 months, and it is not uncommon to see the Adrian City Commission approve at least one resolution specific to this industry at every meeting. A lot has happened to the cannabis industry in a short time. State licensee grantor Rick Johnson was arraigned for accepting bribes. The state director resigned. A new director was appointed, and every week Another story is published in regards to rules that have not been enforced. Brian Hanna, the new state of Michigan cannabis director, stated that the agency is planning actions that will expose bad actors and serve as a warning to other regulated businesses. If there's anybody cutting corners or cheating, we want to expose and take a strong enforcement approach. Hats off to the state of Michigan for realizing that there is a problem and taking steps to address the problem. Similar to cannabis, rental property ownership is another Michigan industry. Just like a cannabis business, rental properties are businesses located in the city of Adrian. The only difference is that the city of Adrian does not hold rental property owners accountable, and this is not equitable. Who gave this Adrian City Commissioners authority to pick and choose what ordinances they are going to follow? Is it equitable to the cannabis industry for the City of Adrian Commissioners to hold them to a higher standard in comparison to rental property industry? Commissioner Helt, in comparison to your colleagues, you use the term blight more than anyone except possibly Commissioner Strayer. We have heard a lot of talk during your time specific to blight, but really no action. The rental property rules are there, and the City of Adrian needs to enforce them, not make new ordinances or talk about it on a monthly or bi-monthly basis. Thank you.
Hearing no more public comment, may I get a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Support. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned. We will begin our regular meeting at 7 p.m. Out recording in progress. I call to order the Adrian City Commission meeting for June 20th, 2023. If everyone would please rise for a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag and to the republic indivisible with liberty and justice. Roll call, please.
Mayor Heath,
Present.
Commissioner Howell,
Present.
Commissioner Roberts,
Present.
Commissioner Miller,
Present.
Commissioner Strayer,
Present.
Commissioner Castleberry. Present. Mr. Gauss,
Present.
all commission members present.
Moving on to proclamations. We gave the Juneteenth proclamation on Saturday at the Juneteenth celebration downtown, but I would like to go ahead and read it today, even though yesterday was Juneteenth, as City Hall was closed and it is now a national holiday. But did want to make that recognition at our meeting as well. Whereas President Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation on January 1st, 1863, declaring the slaves in Confederate territory free, paving the way for the passing of the 13th Amendment, which formally abolished slavery in the United States of America. And whereas word about the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation was delayed some 2.5 years to June 19th, 1865, in reaching authorities and African Americans in the South and Southwestern United States. And whereas Emancipation Day observations are held on different days in different states in the South and Southwest and in other parts of the nation. And whereas June 19th has a special meaning to African Americans and is called Juneteenth, combining the words June and 19th, and has been celebrated by the African American community for over 150 years. Now, therefore, I, Mayor Angela Heath, Mayor of the City of Adrian, Michigan, do hereby proclaim June 19th, 2023 as Juneteenth in Adrian, Michigan, and urge all citizens to become more aware of the significance of this celebration in African American history and in the heritage of our nation and our city. Thank you. At this time, I'm going to go get a microphone and I'm going to ask the recipients of the next proclamation to please come forward up here and I will meet you there. I'm going to let them introduce themselves before I read this proclamation.
Hi, my name's Matt Canales.
My name is Aiden Smith.
My name's Ben Shafka. Jake Eagling.
Tammy Francis.
Jim Miller.
And these two are the coaches, and these are the high school runners for the Adrian High School track team that they won a state championship just a few weeks ago. We've been doing a lot of proclamations this year for state championships for Adrian High School, and it's been really fun to be giving so many. So we're very proud of you and very excited, and thank you for representing our city so well. Whereas the Adrian High School boys 4x800 relay won the D2 state championship, breaking the state record by 13 seconds. And whereas the Adrian boys relay consisting of Ben Shefka, Matt Canales, Aiden Smith, and Jake Eagling took first at the state meet in a time of 7 minutes, 39.77 seconds. And whereas the Adrian boys relay also set the Lenawee County record this year, previously set in 1987, broke the Adrian High School record and are all-state, all-SEC regional champions and state champions. And each of them received SEC all academic honors, indicating they have a GPA of 3.5 or higher. And whereas Aiden Smith will be attending and competing for Central Michigan, Ben Shefka will be running at Spring Arbor, Jake Eagling will be attending Michigan State, and Matt Canales is a junior with another year at Adrian High School before he chooses his college to compete at. Now, therefore, I, Angela Sword Heath, Mayor of the City of Adrian, Michigan, do hereby congratulate the Adrian High School Boys Relay on their state championship and numerous other accomplishments, including their academic achievements. All right, I know the parents want to take pictures, so you may come up. Commission, if you can stay standing so they can take pictures and maybe crowd in around, I'm going to jump in there too. Congratulations once again. By the way, the record you broke that was set in 1987, that was set my senior year at Adrian High School, just so you know. May I get a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
So moved.
Support.
I have a motion from Commissioner Halt with a second from Commissioner Roberts. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Halt,
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller,
Yes.
Commissioner Strayer,
Yes.
Commissioner Castleberry.
Yes.
Commissioner Gauss.
Yes.
Mayor Heath.
Yes.
Consent agenda adopted by unanimous vote.
Moving on to our regular agenda under resolutions. Resolution R23-021 is from Parks and Recreation. It is a resolution to support application for a DNR Spark grant. May I get a motion to adopt the resolution?
So moved.
Support.
Are there any public comments in relation to this resolution? Are there any commissioner comments? I have a motion from Commissioner Miller with a second from Commissioner Gauss. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller,
Yes.
Commissioner Strayer,
Yes.
Commissioner Castleberry,
Yes.
Commissioner Gauss.
Yes.
Mayor Heath,
Yes.
Commissioner Hou.
Yes.
Resolution adopted by unanimous vote.
Commissioners, there are miscellaneous reports in your packet. Are there any questions or comments on those? Commissioner Roberts?
And Commissioner Maston or Commissioner Chief Massengill isn't here, but I would like to know the increase of the ambulance income from previous months is quite significant.
Moving on to public comment. We will start inside the chambers first. After we are finished inside the chambers, we will then open it up to any Zoom participants that want to participate in public comment. Just to reiterate, please state your name and address, and reminder that there is a 3-minute time limit that you will see on the screen. All right, we will now open it up to any Zoom participants. All right, moving on. Are there any commissioner comments? I just would like one thing to just acknowledge. I know that they didn't win a state championship, but Adrian High School baseball team went really far this year and had a spectacular season. And just I want to acknowledge their how well they did this year and what a great season, and also thank them for representing the city of Adrian so well this year in the baseball D2 region. May I get a motion to adjourn?
Support.
I have a motion from Commissioner Hou with a second from Commissioner Roberts. All in favor, say aye. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone.